করোনা সংক্রমণের হাত থেকে ছাত্রছাত্রীদেরকে বাঁচানোর জন্য রাজ্য সরকার অনলাইন ক্লাস এবং লাইভ ক্লাস করার ব্যবস্থা নিয়েছেন বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে। বিগত 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে শিক্ষা দপ্তর অনলাইনে ক্লাসের ব্যবস্থা করেছেন। আমি আশা করি তাতে রাজ্যের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা লাভান্বিত হয়েছেন। আর দ্বিতীয় 6 জুন থেকে বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে লাইভ ক্লাসের ব্যবস্থা করা। আমি আশা করি এই ক্লাসগুলো সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা অ্যাটেন্ড করবেন এবং তার সুফল রাজ্যের সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা এবং তার পরিবারের সদস্যরাও পেতে সক্ষম। আজকের এই পরিস্থিতিতে কোনোভাবেই রাজ্য সরকার ঝুঁকি নিয়ে ক্লাস বা স্কুল খোলার ব্যাপারে সিদ্ধান্ত নিতে সক্ষম নয় যতদিন পর্যন্ত না করোনা সংক্রমণের ভ্যাকসিন না আসে বা সোশ্যাল ডিস্টেন্সিং মেনটেন করে ক্লাস চালানোর ব্যবস্থা না হয় ততদিন পর্যন্ত ক্লাসরুমে বসে ক্লাস করা সম্ভব নয়। তার জন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর এই সিদ্ধান্তগুলো নিয়েছেন। আমি আশা করি বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে যে লাইভ ক্লাস তার লাভ সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা পাবেন এবং নিজেকে সে মতো তৈরি করবে।
করোনা সংক্রমণ রোধে রাজ্য সরকার বিদ্যালয়গুলিতে পঠন পাঠন বন্ধ রাখতে বাধ্য করেছে। এতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা নিয়মিত শ্রেণী শিক্ষা অনুসরণ করতে অসমর্থ হচ্ছে। ফলে ছাত্রছাত্রীদের শিক্ষণ প্রক্রিয়ার সাথে সম্পৃক্ত রাখার লক্ষ্যে মাননীয় মুখ্যমন্ত্রীর অনুপ্রেরণায় ও মাননীয় শিক্ষামন্ত্রীর একান্ত আগ্রহে বিদ্যালয় শিক্ষা দপ্তর 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে বৈদ্যুতিন মাধ্যমগুলিতে এলিমেন্টারি এবং সেকেন্ডারি স্তরের ছাত্রছাত্রীদের জন্য অনলাইন ক্লাস শুরু করেছিল। পরবর্তী সময়ে ছাত্রছাত্রীদের অনলাইন ক্লাসের প্রতি আরও মনোযোগী করতে লাইভ ক্লাসও চালু করা হয়েছে, যাতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকাদের সঙ্গে সরাসরি কথা বলে তাদের কৌতূহল মিটিয়ে নিতে পারে। দপ্তর আশা করছে রাজ্যের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা এই লাইভ ক্লাস থেকে উপকৃত হবে। তাহলে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা নিশ্চয়ই তোমরা ক্লাসগুলিতে অংশগ্রহণ করবে। সকল অভিভাবক ও শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকাদের অনুরোধ করা হচ্ছে যে তারা যেন ছাত্রছাত্রীদের পূর্ব নির্ধারিত সূচি অনুযায়ী বৈদ্যুতিন মাধ্যমগুলিতে সরাসরি সম্প্রচারকৃত ক্লাসগুলি দেখে তার জন্য যথোপযুক্ত ব্যবস্থা গ্রহণ করেন। সবাই ঘরে থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।
প্রিয় ছাত্রছাত্রী এবং অভিভাবকবৃন্দ, করোনার সংক্রমণের কারণে দীর্ঘদিন ধরে স্কুল বন্ধ রয়েছে, আমরা সবাই জানি। কিন্তু আমাদের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা যেন শিক্ষার সাথে যুক্ত থাকে সেজন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর বিভিন্ন কর্মসূচি গ্রহণ করেছে। গত 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে আমরা 3 মে পর্যন্ত 15 দিন কন্টিনিউ 13টা প্রাইভেট চ্যানেলে আমরা রেকর্ডিং অনলাইন ক্লাস করিয়েছি এবং পরবর্তী সময় 6 জুন থেকে শুরু হয়েছে, 15 জুন পর্যন্ত শেষ হয়েছে। 10টা প্রাইভেট চ্যানেল তারা অনলাইন ক্লাস নেওয়া হয়েছে এবং লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট, শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা ডাইরেক্ট টেলিকাস্ট করছে। এখন আবার 22 জুন থেকে শুরু হতে যাচ্ছে, 1 মাস ব্যাপী 22 জুলাই পর্যন্ত আবার শুরু হবে অনলাইন ক্লাস, লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট। শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা এতে অংশগ্রহণ করবে। আমি প্রত্যেক ছাত্রছাত্রীদের অনুরোধ করব এই সময় যেন যাতে আমাদের শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা যা টেলিকাস্ট করছে সেটার সাথে যেন তারা ফলো করে, এটা আমি অনুরোধ করব। আর অভিভাবকদের অনুরোধ করব আপনারাও যেন আপনাদের সন্তানদের সঠিকভাবে যাতে লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট দেখতে পারে, অনলাইন ক্লাস দেখতে পারে, তার জন্য প্রয়োজনীয় ব্যবস্থা করবেন। পাশাপাশি কবে স্কুল খুলবে আমরা কিচ্ছু বলতে পারছি না, সেজন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর আপ্রাণ চেষ্টা করবে যে যতদিন স্কুল না খুলে ততদিন পর্যন্ত অনলাইন ক্লাসগুলি চালিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য। আশা করি এতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা উপকৃত হবে। সবাইকে অনুরোধ করব এই বিষয়টা লক্ষ্য রাখার জন্য। ধন্যবাদ, নমস্কার।
Hello my dear students, hope you are all fine. Even in this pandemic situation also you are busy with your studies because next year you will be appearing in the board exam. And regarding that, today we shall be discussing on our subject political science, the syllabus and the chapters, mark distribution, the way we will answer, everything we are going to discuss today. Overall discussion we shall do today. So one way you are lucky enough that originally there were 8 chapters in our syllabus, but now due to the pandemic situation actually you have to study only 4 chapters. So what are those 4 chapters? Let us see. We are having chapter 1 and the title of the chapter is power sharing. Then chapter 2 and the title of the chapter is federalism. Then chapter 6 political parties and chapter 7 outcomes of democracy. So these are the 4 chapters basically you have to study, you have to prepare for your pre-board board exams. So one way you are lucky enough that the syllabus is reduced a lot, but you have to study in detail. Now let us see the mark distribution from these chapters. Actually there will be total mark from political science is 20 because the SST examination under Tripura board is going to take place. Total 80 marks, history, geography, political science, economics. So each subject has got 20 marks. Accordingly our political science has also got 20 marks. Now how these 20 marks are distributed, let us find out. You will get very short answers. It will carry 1 mark. Each question will carry 1 mark. There will be 4 questions. You have to answer in short, in brief, either in 1 word or sentence. Sometimes it may be 2 sentences, but not more than that, because maximum mark for this question will be 1. So you need not to explain much for these questions. So how many questions you are getting for 1 mark? 4. 1 into 4 VSA, 4 marks will be there for this category. Secondly, you will get short answer type. There you are getting 3 marks for each question. Maximum mark for the second category, that is short answer type. It is 3 marks. 2 questions will be there. So total 6 marks. 3 into 2, 6 marks is allotted for short answer type. Maximum word for these short types is 80 words. Little bit exaggeration doesn't matter much, but you should not explain much. You should not, suppose it is said that you have to write in 80 words, so for that you are going for 100, 200. It should not be. If you write unnecessary extra matters here, then of course there may be the reduction of marks. So don't go for that. And moreover, you will not manage the time also, because you have to answer 4 subjects here. You will not answer only political science, no, under SST. On the same day you have to answer 4 subjects: history, geography, economics and political science. So you have to be calculative enough. You have to be very calculative if you want to answer in prompt manner. That's why we suggest that 80 words are enough for 3 marks answer each, but little bit exaggeration, 10-15 words if you write extra, that doesn't matter much. For that there will be no reduction of marks. okay, and you should not write too short also. In that case you may get less. So it is better you write little extra or within 80 words, that's better. So for short type answers you are getting 2 questions, each question carries 3 marks. So 3 into 2, 6. And the last one, long answer type, you will get again 2 questions, each question will carry 5 marks. So here it is very important to explain in detail. Some students think that as the question is carrying 5 marks, so I shall write 5 points. Generally it is found that it is better if you write more points, so it will be helpful for you to score more. That's why I suggest wherever possible for 5 marks question you write 6, 7, 8 points like that. Okay, the more explanation you give, more explanation in the sense more points, not just like story type. These are not story type actually, it is of course long answer, but if you write point wise, the more points you are including, the more benefit you will get. So that is the point here. So 2 questions will be asked, each question carrying 5 marks, so 5 2s are 10, and that way it becomes 20 marks. Hope you are getting the point, the mark distribution we have discussed. So these 4 chapters, power sharing, federalism, political parties and outcomes of democracy, these are very interesting chapters. You have studied, I am sure. So some of the students may have confusion because you have not got any chance to go to school in this situation, so you are not in direct contact with the school, so you may have some confusions, but we are clearing those today itself. Okay, so what are the topics? Now we shall discuss the topics which we will discuss under each chapter. Let us find out. So in power sharing, chapter 1, power sharing, what are the matters we will discuss? Let us find out. What does the term power sharing mean? That is also very important to know. What does the term power sharing mean? I hope you have studied. If I would have asked this question in the class, then many of you could answer this one. So power sharing, first of all, chapter 1, we will be discussing power sharing. So what are the matters we shall be discussing from here? Let us find out. Power sharing, under power sharing, basically in our chapter, in our book, case study of 2 countries it is given. The case study of Belgium and Sri Lanka. Case study of Belgium and Sri Lanka is done here. In detail there is study about Belgium and Sri Lanka, how power sharing is done in these 2 countries. It is quite contradictory. Sharing power in any country, power sharing is not an easy job. It is tough enough, because we find nowadays, due to the well connectivity, better communication system, now many countries have diversities in the sense of language, culture, community, heritage. So various types of diversities are found in almost in all the countries. That's why it has become very tough power sharing in all the countries now. So for the case study in our book, basically 2 countries examples are taken, that is the case study of Belgium and Sri Lanka. So that we shall find out today. And then why power sharing is desirable? Another important point here, why power sharing is desirable. And if power sharing is not done, then what happens? Why power sharing is desirable, that one also we shall discuss today. And then we shall discuss about forms of power sharing. Forms of power sharing. What are the various forms of power sharing, that we shall find out today. So these are the basic matters. See, what will you do whenever you study the chapter? First of all, you go through the textbook, read the chapter attentively, very sincerely read the chapter. Mark with your pencil the important lines, important data from there. We shall find out some important data from this chapter, which will be very helpful for you to prepare some short type of questions, because there will be, you have seen there will be 4 short questions, and this chapter has got certain data which are important for your short type of questions. So that we shall find out first. Then why power sharing is desirable, that also we shall study, and forms of power sharing we shall find out. So what are the matters you will go for short types, and what are the questions you will prepare for broad types, either 3 marks or 5 marks, that we shall see now. Say for example, if we take first power sharing in Belgium, how is the ethnic composition found in Belgium, that we shall find out first. How is the ethnic composition found in Belgium, that we shall find out first. Now let us find out how is the ethnic composition in Belgium. In Belgium, you see, there are 2 types of systems. It may be regarding language or region wise differences found. So in case of overall, what is the ethnic composition? What is ethnic composition? Ethnic composition means when a group of people, ethnic community rather we say, when a group of people find that they are the same descendants, they are following the same customs, heritage, language, food habits, costumes, they consider themselves as the ethnic community, but not necessarily they will be living in the same country. They may live in different countries, but they are following the same culture, heritage, traditions and all. So that makes the ethnic community. So how is the ethnic composition in overall Belgium, overall country? Okay, overall means how it is found, let us find out. Actually there are Dutch speakers, Dutch speakers are 59%. 59% of the people in Belgium are Dutch speakers. Now where do they live? They live in the Flemish region. Live in Flemish region. Okay. So 59% of the total population in Belgium are actually Dutch speaker. Dutch is a language, and 59% of the total population in Belgium are speaking Belgium. And where do they live? Basically they live in the Flemish region. It's a particular region, it's a vast one, so they live in the Flemish region. And 40% of the people are French speakers. French speakers are 40%. Out of the total population, 40% of the people of Belgium are French speakers. Where do they live? They live in Wallonia region. Wallonia region. So, and 59% plus 40%, it covers 99%. And then 1% people speak actually German. Only 1% are German speakers. That makes it 100%. So that is the picture, ethnic composition in Belgium. Overall, in overall the country of Belgium, there is such kind of composition is found. So you can, it is quite obvious that in a country there will be people belong to a particular community or language, they will cover up the majority. It is quite obvious, it may happen. So the same thing happened in Belgium also. In the overall country, we find that Dutch speakers covering the majority portion, that is 59%. But that's not the ending. There is another problem. In the capital city of Brussels, different picture is found. In the capital city of Brussels, different picture is found. So what we have find there? We find that actually there are French speakers are more. French speakers are 80%. French speakers are 80% over there. Now see, in overall country, in overall Belgium, the French speakers were only 40%. But in the capital city of Brussels, Brussels is the capital city of Belgium, where 80% of the people are French speakers. They are speaking French language, whereas only 20% are Dutch speakers. Only 20% of the people are Dutch speakers. That makes it 100%. So you can find out that the ethnic composition is different in the overall country and in capital city of Brussels. That was the contradiction. So it was conflicting, but they solved it. They have taken the representation in such a manner so that the problem of power sharing is solved. So that the important thing is that the initiative is important. The people should take initiative for power sharing and to solve the problem. So that way the problem of Brussels has been solved. Now we shall find out another case study that is discussed in our chapter. It is about Sri Lanka. It's a different one. How is the ethnic composition in Sri Lanka found? You know, Sri Lanka is one of our neighboring country. It is one of the island country. It is very close to us. It is our it is situated in the southern part of our country. It's an island country, Sri Lanka. So power sharing in, now we shall find out power sharing in Sri Lanka. How power sharing is done in Sri Lanka, and what is the ethnic composition over there? Let us find out. In Sri Lanka, it is found that the Sinhalese speakers, Sinhalese is a language over there in Sri Lanka. Sinhalese speakers covering 74%. 74% of the people in Sri Lanka speak Sinhalese, whereas the rest of the people over there, they are the Tamil speakers. 18% actually Tamil speakers. Tamil speakers are 18%, covering 18% of the total population. Now those who are the Sinhalese speakers, they belong to Buddhist religion. They belong to Buddhist religion, whereas Tamil speakers, the 18% Tamil speakers are further classified into two categories. What are those two categories? Among them, some are Sri Lankan Tamil and the others are Indian Tamil. Let us find out that composition here. So, Sri Lankan Tamils cover up only 13%. Among the Tamil speakers, the people, those who are speaking Tamil language in Sri Lanka, among them, because the Tamil speakers are further classified into two categories, 13% of the Tamil speakers are actually Sri Lankan Tamil speakers, whereas 87% are Indian Tamil speakers. Indian Tamil speakers cover up 87% of the total population. Now see the contradiction. And another important thing is that these Sri Lankan Tamil speakers and Indian Tamil speakers, they belong to various religions, say for example Hinduism or Islam or Christianity. So these are the different type of ethnic composition found in Sri Lanka. So again there is conflict, again there is contradiction. Now the problem has to be solved. The problem of power sharing cannot be allowed to continue, no. So they have taken good initiative, they have taken proper representation system, and the problem is solved somehow. So that is quite appreciable. Okay, we must appreciate these initiatives taken in Belgium as well as in Sri Lanka. Now the question is, why we are worried about power sharing? Why it is important? Yes, you got the right point. Because without power sharing, there is always possibility of conflict around the world, everywhere, wherever there is problem, you will find that this is just due to the problem of power sharing. When the power sharing is not done in proper manner, then definitely there will be conflict. There will be conflicting issues arising frequently. So we must find out now the reasons for power sharing. See, I have given you some important data here. You will get many short questions from here. Say for example, what percent of the total population in Brussels are actually French speakers, or what percent of the total population in Belgium as a whole in the country are Dutch speakers. So like that previously we have discussed those data, those percentage of population speaking different languages. The short questions are quite possible from here. So these are quite important for your short questions, preparation for your short questions, your pre-board and board, for both I am telling. Now let us find out reasons for power sharing. Reasons for power sharing. Why power sharing is important? Why we must concentrate, we must focus on power sharing everywhere around the world? The first reason is unity of the nation. Unity of the nation. Our first concern is unity of the nation. Now see, due to the advancement of communication and transport system, almost all the countries have people belong to different communities, different culture, language and all. So it is quite obvious that there will be conflict among various groups of people. Now how this problem can be solved? Because without unity it is not possible for any nation to develop. Wherever there is disintegration, unity is not found over there and the development is hampered. So every country's administration, the leaders, they want unity. They want to establish unity and they find out the solution, they find out certain techniques so that the unity can be maintained, and that is the most important reason for power sharing. So proper representation from all the communities is very important so that the unity of the nation can be maintained. So unity of the nation is the first reason why we are worried about power sharing. The second important thing is that for the reduction of possible conflicts, when people belong to different culture, community, language, religion, food habits, costumes, it is quite obvious that there will be contradictions. The opinions will not be same, but they are living in the same country. They belong to different ethnic communities, as we have discussed earlier. So to avoid that conflict, power sharing among all those groups in a proper manner is a very challenging job for the authority, for the administration. So reduction of possible conflict, for the reduction of possible conflicts, power sharing is important. So this one can be a broad question for you, that why power sharing is important. So these are the points we will explain. It may be given for 3 marks or 5 marks question. Hope you are getting the point. Then for maintaining political stability, for political stability. Political stability is very important. For maintenance of political stability, power sharing is important. You see, you have studied about coalition government many a time, and you have found that whenever there was coalition government, it was not stable enough. And if the government is not stable enough, then how they will concentrate on the progress of the nation? So that's why political stability is very important. And how the political stability can be established? Yes, through proper power sharing system. If the proper power sharing is done, then of course political stability is possible. Then another important reason is that to establish true spirit of democracy, it is the power sharing is true spirit, it is considered as true spirit of democracy. Okay, without proper power sharing, democracy is meaningless. People will not be satisfied if the power is not given to each and every community, each and every group in proper manner. Then of course they will not be satisfied. Then the result is, and the consequence is, conflict. So these are the reasons why power sharing is important. So this one can be a broad question for you, either for 3 marks or 5 marks. You can prepare the answer with these points. You can include more points here. From these only, from these main headings, you can include more points. You can give examples. So so this way you can prepare a very good answer. Now let us find out what are the different forms of power sharing. What are the different forms of power sharing? Let us find out. Hope you have studied, as this is the first chapter, so it is already completed. You have already completed, I am sure. I am sure you have completed everything. So this will be a revision for you as well. So what are the different forms of power sharing? Forms of power sharing. What are the different forms of power sharing? Let us find out. Basically, there are 2 types of power sharing found. One is called vertical power sharing. Vertical power sharing. What is vertical power sharing? You have studied in lower classes also. You have got the term federalism. What is this federalism? Federalism means the type of administration where different levels of the government is found. Say for example, our country. All of you know that there is central government or the union government in New Delhi, and in all the states, union territories, there are regional governments, state governments are there. At the local level, there are again distribution of power is there. At the local level, in the rural areas, there is a rural local self-government, which is also called the Panchayati Raj system. And in the urban areas, the urban local self-government is there. What are the classifications? You have studied in lower classes already these things. Municipal corporation, municipality, Nagar Panchayat, these are there. So, this way when the power is distributed among various levels of the government, keep a clear concept in your mind that vertical power sharing means when the power is distributed among various levels of the government. So, this term is very important. Power distribution among various levels of the government. various levels of the government. So what are the various levels of the government? There is central government or union government, you can call in our country at New Delhi. State governments are there in every state. The local government is there in the rural areas, in the urban areas. So every level has got certain power. The power is distributed among all the levels of the government. So this is called vertical power sharing. So our country is one of the best example regarding this, that in every level the power is distributed. There is another type of power sharing. It is called horizontal power sharing. Horizontal power sharing. What is this horizontal power sharing? That also you have studied in lower classes. You know, every democratic government has got three basic organs. What are those three organs? Legislative, executive, and judiciary. Judiciary. And the constitution of the country has established the three organs of the government almost at the equal level. Every organ has got its own responsibilities, its functions. There must not be interference among these organs. Rather, there will be coordination, good relationship among the three organs of the government, that is legislative, executive and judiciary. So how can you define horizontal power sharing? Horizontal power sharing means when the power is distributed among various organs of the government. So just remember these two things, that in vertical power sharing, power is distributed among various levels of the government like central government, state government, local government. Whereas in horizontal power sharing, power is distributed among various organs. Various organs. This term you have to remember. Hope you will not face any trouble. If you just distinguish between these two matters, that is, in vertical power sharing, different levels are involved, whereas in horizontal power sharing, different organs of the government is involved. That makes the clear difference between vertical power sharing and horizontal power sharing. Now, are these enough? Are there only these two forms of power sharing? No, there are other forms also. See, it may happen that power sharing is done among various political parties, among pressure groups, among various social communities. These are also the types of power sharing. So, you have to remember that there are various forms of power sharing found around the world. But basic two forms, that is vertical and the horizontal one, you must remember very clearly, and you must learn to distinguish between these two, about the level and about the organ. Okay. Now we shall proceed to the second one, second chapter, that is federalism. What does the term federalism mean? While discussing about the power sharing, you have already seen that we have talked about federalism, a federal country. All of you know, around the world there are various types of administration practiced. Okay, now we shall discuss about federalism. What is this federalism? This is not a new term for you. You have studied in lower classes that India is a federal country. Why India is a federal country? What makes India a federal country? It is quite simple, easy to understand that when the power is distributed among various levels of the government, this type of administration is called federalism. So it is quite clear, in our country such system is in practice. We can say that the power is distributed between the central government and the state governments as well as the local governments. So this system is called federalism. Now we have to know that in some countries federalism is in practice, but not in all the countries. There are some countries where there is another form of government is in practice. So that is called unitary form of government. So let us know the difference between these two, the federal system of administration and unitary system of administration. So it will be easier for you to learn the features of federalism. When you know the difference between federal system and unitary system, very easily you can remember the features of federalism. So let us find out the difference. Okay, the federal system and unitary system. Now what are the difference? Let us find out. In federal system there will be two or more levels of government. I hope you can get the idea. Which two levels or more we are talking about? You have seen in the vertical power sharing. So try to find out the link between these two. That while we are discussing about vertical power sharing, we have discussed about the federal system, because there is more than one level of government, the central government, state government and the local governments. Whereas in unitary system, basically one level is found. So hope you can find out the first difference, that in federal system two or more levels of governments are found, whereas in unitary system only one level of government is found. But we have to remember that in unitary system also, when there is one level of government, there can be other regional governments, but they do not have any kind of sovereignty or absolute authority of those regional governments. So that makes the clear distinction between the federal system and the unitary system. Now state governments, in federal system state governments are autonomous. In federal system state governments are autonomous. What does it mean? Means the state governments are also having certain kind of supreme authority, absolute authority they are having. They are free to decide about their administrative matters. They are not dependent on the central government or the union government. So that makes the state governments more powerful, very, very powerful in federal system. Whereas in unitary system, the state governments are subordinate of the central government. Hope you are getting the point. It is very easy to understand that in federal system the state governments are autonomous, absolute authority they are having. They are sovereign. They can decide freely about their administrative policies, further action plans. They need not to depend on the decision of the central government. Whereas in unitary system, the state governments are actually subordinate. They are below the central government's instruction. They have to follow, they are bound to obey the instructions given by the unitary government or the central government. Okay. Here in this federal system, central government cannot order the state governments. The central government or the union government has no authority to instruct or order the state governments in the federal system, whereas in unitary system the central government can order the state governments. So these are the basic three differences between the federal system and the unitary system. Hope the points are clear to you. And when you know the difference between the federal system and the unitary system, it will be easier for you to remember the basic features of the federal system, because we are focusing mainly on federalism. That is the title of the chapter. Okay. So the differences are quite clear, I hope. Now we shall proceed. The balance of power in federal system. How the balance of power is maintained in federal system. Let us take the example of our country, India. In our country, how the balance of power is maintained in this Indian federal system. The balance of power. Balance of power. In federal system. Actually, there are two types of federalism practiced. Two types of federalism are practiced around the world. What are these two types of federalism? One is coming together federalism. Coming together federalism. What is this coming together federalism? Hope you have already studied. Those who have studied, it is just like a revision for you, so you can understand very clearly. So the coming together federalism is when the regional governments or the state governments come forward willingly, spontaneously to form a bigger unit, a stronger unit, but maintaining their own sovereignty. Try to understand what we are discussing about regarding the matter of coming together federalism. In coming together federalism, the constituent units, say for example, constituent units here means for our country the state governments, the states. So the state governments, the authority of the states, they come forward spontaneously, willingly, and they form a bigger unit, a stronger unit. But we must remember that they are maintaining their authority, sovereignty. Then they come together, so their security is increased, their strength is increased, because they are forming a bigger unit, a stronger unit. That is called the coming together federalism. Where it is found? Coming together federalism is found basically in Australia. For example, Australia, USA. In these countries, we find coming together federalism. One important feature you have to remember that they are spontaneous over there. For their own will, on their own wish, they are coming forward to form the bigger unit, to make them more secured and stronger. Now the other type of federalism, let us find out, that is called holding together federalism. Holding together federalism. What is this holding together federalism? It is quite different type. In coming together, we have found the constituent units that is the state governments or the regional governments, they were spontaneous. Of their own will, they came forward to form the bigger unit, as it happened in USA or Australia. Whereas in holding together federalism, the constituent units were not spontaneous enough. Actually, they were not interested to come forward and to join the bigger unit, but the central authority was more interested to hold together all the constituent units to make it bigger and stronger. So that is the basic difference between coming together federalism and holding together federalism. Say for example, holding together federalism is found in our country, that is India. Because if you study about the formation of Indian Union, when the provincial regions, the princely states were joined with the Indian Union, it was really very challenging for the nation builders. It was not easy to bring together the princely state. You know, there were 565 princely states in our country, and many of them were not at all interested to join with the Indian Union even after the independence. So here Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel took the initiative, and his instrument of accession, the policy which was worked like magic. So many provincial governments, many regional governments, princely states, they came forward, joined with the Indian Union. There was fighting even. The Hyderabad, when the accession of Hyderabad was going on, it was really very tough. Okay, so we are discussing about the balance of power, and the balance of power is done in two manners, that is coming together federalism and holding together federalism. Here also you can prepare some short questions that give example of some countries where coming together federalism is found. So what will be the answer? Answer is Australia, USA, some other countries are there, you can find out. Then name some countries, another short question, name some countries where holding together federalism is in practice. We can write the name of our country, India's name here. Okay, so this is the way how balance of power is done in federalism. Now we shall find out distribution of power. Distribution of power, because the main charm of federalism, is lying here regarding the distribution of power. Okay, how the power is distributed? Distribution of power in federalism, this is very important. Distribution of power is very important in federalism, because if the proper distribution of power is not done, then it is useless. To call it a federal country will not be very effective. Now, how the power distribution is done in our country, let us find out. Actually, there are three lists. The first one is called union list, then there is state list, and there is another one, it is called concurrent list. Other one is called the concurrent list. There is another list also, that is called residuary list. But let us find out what are these lists actually. Actually, through these lists, power is distributed between the central and the state government. Okay, and what are the matters involved in the union list which have got national importance? Say for example defense, say for example printing of currency, money. Is it possible for the government of Tripura to print currency? Of course not. This is the matter of the Reserve Bank of India. Only Reserve Bank of India can print currency. So that is under union list. And state list, say for example agriculture, education, these are the matters under state list. Then concurrent list is that list from where the state government and the central government can make laws. So this way, by these three lists, power distribution is done in the federal system, especially in our country. Okay, so hope you are getting the point. Some more points are to be discussed here. And you know, decentralization is done by means of distribution of power among the various levels of government, that we have discussed earlier. And hope today's discussion will help you to get an overall idea about your exam preparation. You have seen the mark distribution, you will write accordingly. Okay, there must not be exaggeration for the long answers. Yes, of course, little bit exaggeration, there is no harm, but you must not write much extra. Don't make your own stories. Limit yourself to the points. Write in more points, it will be helpful for you to score more. Okay, all the best for your exams. That's all for today. Thank you for watching.
করোনা সংক্রমণের হাত থেকে ছাত্রছাত্রীদেরকে বাঁচানোর জন্য রাজ্য সরকার অনলাইন ক্লাস এবং লাইভ ক্লাস করার ব্যবস্থা নিয়েছেন বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে। বিগত 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে শিক্ষা দপ্তর অনলাইনে ক্লাসের ব্যবস্থা করেছেন। আমি আশা করি তাতে রাজ্যের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা লাভান্বিত হয়েছেন। আর দ্বিতীয় 6 জুন থেকে বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে লাইভ ক্লাসের ব্যবস্থা করা। আমি আশা করি এই ক্লাসগুলো সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা অ্যাটেন্ড করবেন এবং তার সুফল রাজ্যের সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা এবং তার পরিবারের সদস্যরাও পেতে সক্ষম। আজকের এই পরিস্থিতিতে কোনোভাবেই রাজ্য সরকার ঝুঁকি নিয়ে ক্লাস বা স্কুল খোলার ব্যাপারে সিদ্ধান্ত নিতে সক্ষম নয় যতদিন পর্যন্ত না করোনা সংক্রমণের ভ্যাকসিন না আসে বা সোশ্যাল ডিস্টেন্সিং মেনটেন করে ক্লাস চালানোর ব্যবস্থা না হয় ততদিন পর্যন্ত ক্লাসরুমে বসে ক্লাস করা সম্ভব নয়। তার জন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর এই সিদ্ধান্তগুলো নিয়েছেন। আমি আশা করি বৈদ্যুতিক চ্যানেলের মাধ্যমে যে লাইভ ক্লাস তার লাভ সমস্ত ছাত্রছাত্রীরা পাবেন এবং নিজেকে সে মতো তৈরি করবে।
করোনা সংক্রমণ রোধে রাজ্য সরকার বিদ্যালয়গুলিতে পঠন পাঠন বন্ধ রাখতে বাধ্য করেছে। এতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা নিয়মিত শ্রেণী শিক্ষা অনুসরণ করতে অসমর্থ হচ্ছে। ফলে ছাত্রছাত্রীদের শিক্ষণ প্রক্রিয়ার সাথে সম্পৃক্ত রাখার লক্ষ্যে মাননীয় মুখ্যমন্ত্রীর অনুপ্রেরণায় ও মাননীয় শিক্ষামন্ত্রীর একান্ত আগ্রহে বিদ্যালয় শিক্ষা দপ্তর 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে বৈদ্যুতিক মাধ্যমগুলিতে এলিমেন্টারি এবং সেকেন্ডারি স্তরের ছাত্রছাত্রীদের জন্য অনলাইন ক্লাস শুরু করেছিল। পরবর্তী সময়ে ছাত্রছাত্রীদের অনলাইন ক্লাসের প্রতি আরও মনোযোগী করতে লাইভ ক্লাসও চালু করা হয়েছে। যাতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকাদের সঙ্গে সরাসরি কথা বলে তাদের কৌতূহল মিটিয়ে নিতে পারে। দপ্তর আশা করছে রাজ্যের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা এই লাইভ ক্লাস থেকে উপকৃত হবে। তাহলে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা নিশ্চয়ই তোমরা ক্লাসগুলিতে অংশগ্রহণ করবে। সকল অভিভাবক ও শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকাদের অনুরোধ করা হচ্ছে যে তারা যেন ছাত্রছাত্রীদের পূর্ব নির্ধারিত সূচি অনুযায়ী বৈদ্যুতিন মাধ্যমগুলিতে সরাসরি সম্প্রচারকৃত ক্লাসগুলি দেখে তার জন্য যথোপযুক্ত ব্যবস্থা গ্রহণ করেন। সবাই ভালো থাকুন, সুস্থ থাকুন।
প্রিয় ছাত্রছাত্রী এবং অভিভাবকবৃন্দ, করোনার সংক্রমণের কারণে দীর্ঘদিন ধরে স্কুল বন্ধ রয়েছে, আমরা সবাই জানি। কিন্তু আমাদের ছাত্রছাত্রীরা যেন শিক্ষার সাথে যুক্ত থাকে সেজন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর বিভিন্ন কর্মসূচি গ্রহণ করেছে। গত 19শে এপ্রিল থেকে আমরা 3 মে পর্যন্ত 15 দিন কন্টিনিউ 13টা প্রাইভেট চ্যানেলে আমরা রেকর্ডিং অনলাইন ক্লাস করিয়েছি এবং পরবর্তী সময় 6 জুন থেকে শুরু হয়েছে, 15 জুন পর্যন্ত শেষ হয়েছে। 10টা প্রাইভেট চ্যানেল তারা অনলাইন ক্লাস নেওয়া হয়েছে এবং লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট, শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা ডাইরেক্ট টেলিকাস্ট করছে। এখন আবার 22 জুন থেকে শুরু হতে যাচ্ছে, 1 মাস ব্যাপী 22 জুলাই পর্যন্ত আবার শুরু হবে অনলাইন ক্লাস, লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট। শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা এতে অংশগ্রহণ করবে। আমি প্রত্যেক ছাত্রছাত্রীদের অনুরোধ করব এই সময় যেন যাতে আমাদের শিক্ষক শিক্ষিকারা যা টেলিকাস্ট করছে সেটার সাথে যেন তারা ফলো করে, এটা আমি অনুরোধ করব। আর অভিভাবকদের অনুরোধ করব, আপনারাও যেন আপনাদের সন্তানদের সঠিকভাবে যাতে লাইভ টেলিকাস্ট দেখতে পারে, অনলাইন ক্লাস দেখতে পারে, তার জন্য প্রয়োজনীয় ব্যবস্থা করবেন। পাশাপাশি কবে স্কুল খুলবে আমরা কিচ্ছু বলতে পারছি না, সেজন্য শিক্ষা দপ্তর আপ্রাণ চেষ্টা করবে যে যতদিন স্কুল না খুলে ততদিন পর্যন্ত অনলাইন ক্লাসগুলি চালিয়ে যাওয়ার জন্য। আশা করি এতে ছাত্রছাত্রীরা উপকৃত হবে। সবাইকে অনুরোধ করব এই বিষয়টা লক্ষ্য রাখতে। ধন্যবাদ, নমস্কার।